Hey, where's the music? Normally during this part of the stream we have some kind of tidal cycles tune happening, but today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. So I didn't have a new tune ready to go, at least not yet, and I didn't really want to grab an older one, so we're just going to make something new today, which is exciting. So you can think of this as sort of like a live tidal cycles demo. Live tidal cycles demo. Yay. Okay, so we're gonna work on this just like pretty much everything else we do on this channel. You can think of this as being sort of like part tutorial, part experimentation, and almost entirely embarrassment on my part. So that's probably how this is gonna play out. I should probably mention that in terms of like the specific syntax we're going to be using, I am technically running an older version of tidal cycles. In fact, the most recent update was a breaking update, so this syntax is actually no longer going to be relevant. So that's on my homework list is to learn the new syntax and to actually update this stuff. But it's going to make all these old tunes kind of obsolete, I guess. So it might be quite an undertaking. Okay. So I guess we're going to look at this at a fairly, we're going to look at it fairly broadly. We're not going to get too much into the specifics of like the syntax for reasons I just mentioned. But we do want to sort of get an overview of what this is all about. So feel free to let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Suggestions would be great too. As you probably know, I'm not very knowledgeable about music or anything like that. Ooh, by the way, let's update the title here. The title. The title? Okay. Okay. Great. So, what do we want to do here? Well, basically the very first thing you see is, I guess you could call this some boilerplate code. Essentially, we have something here that's just going to set the tempo. By the way, this is based on the Haskell programming language, which I'm honestly not too familiar with outside of the context of Tidal. So basically, this is a comment. That's about as much as I know about Haskell, I guess. But anyway, this is going to set the tempo. Something like this is going to turn off all the sound, and then this is one of 9 channels that's going to play some sound. So all of these are basically separate blocks. This isn't like the same way we would run some JavaScript code where basically it's just one line after another. And I'm sure there's a computer science name for that, but I don't have it on me right now. So basically the idea is like we could run this and it's just going to run individually. It's not going to run any of the other stuff over here. We can set the tempo. Again, it's not really something we can hear. By the way, I'm just doing Control-Enter to run these things. So if I run this, hopefully we can hear that. Let me know, by the way, if the levels seem off, like if I should increase the tidal cycles volume, decrease the mic volume, vice versa. Feel free to let me know. So BD stands for bass drum. That didn't highlight properly. Yeah, bass drum. So this is basically just a sample that it's playing back. Like I was saying about the tempo, if we wanted it to be like a lot faster, we could make it like 160 beats per minute, and that would be a lot faster. We could make it just like 60 beats per minute, and that would be a lot slower. But 120 is like pretty standard. That's sort of what most of our stuff is. And a lot of like kind of dancey kind of music ranges between 120, 125. I think it's usually kind of in the 120 range. So we're going to keep it at that for now. Like I was saying, basically each of these things are run individually. So if we run this, it's not going to, well, okay, this is going to affect everything in the sense that it's like controlling the main loop that's going through. And that's something I guess I should mention. There's basically always this main loop that's always playing. And we can add other sounds to this if we want. So like maybe we could have like a clap sample. How should we do this? So we'll say clap. There we go. Okay. And then from here we can like put effects on these things. We could make it sound like really intense if we wanted to, for example. So shape is going to put a distortion on it. Gain is basically just turning down the volume, because if we didn't, this clap sound would be really loud. Too loud. So this is a trick I sometimes use to make our samples sound like a little bit more mean. Hush. That's just going to silence everything. But we can also silence like specific channels if we wanted, you know, like let's say we like the bass drum over here, sounds good, but actually I'm kind of over this clap sound, so let's just get rid of that. We could change the sample up too, make it a snare drum, for example. And for each of these, this is more like a sample pack than just a single sample. So like N corresponds to like which of the samples within the pack we want to use. So by default it's 0, but we could kind of shuffle through these. I don't know how many there are in here. We'd have to actually like go to the directory that contains all the wave files kind of thing. We could also just make this like give it a function, irandom, which means like choose a random integer from 0 to 15. I figure there's probably not more than 15. Ooh, got a bit of lag there. Let me take a look at my super dirt. Looks like it should be running okay. Anyway, this is all within the realm of samples. We can upload our own samples. I've uploaded a few. I think the main one I use is called Bad. Okay, let's take off this shape. That's a little too intense. Yeah, so there's some pretty cool samples in there. Anyway, I am worried about that lag. I don't know why that's happening. This doesn't seem very processor intensive, so it's kind of surprising that it would actually lag. By the way, can everyone hear me okay? Let me know if you can't. Let me know either way, I guess. Okay, so let's get rid of this second one here. What I really want to focus on, and this is the way I normally create my kind of stuff. I mean, I'm sure other creators have different processes, but I sort of want to demo the way I come up with these tunes. So usually I have my keyboard in front of me. I don't know if that's audible or not. Let's see. I don't have like a MIDI cable plugged in or anything like that. It's basically just picking it up from the microphone, so. Is that audible? Hopefully. Anyway, so basically I normally start with like one main riff, one main kind of rhythm, and I sort of had one in mind for today, so let's just get the tempo going, I guess. Hopefully this syncs up, but I was thinking something like this. Hopefully I get this right. Yeah, so something like that. So basically the idea is if we want to program something like that in, we're going to use something a little bit different. So instead of using samples, we're going to use, and the syntax is going to look really similar, but we're going to use actual notes here. So like, for example, this thing I've been playing, this thing I was playing is, I think, in D minor. Yeah, so it starts with D. I guess that makes sense. Okay, so we would say D, the note that we want to play, and the octave that we want to play it in. So maybe like 4 or something like that. And then there's going to be a D3 in between every other note here. And we'll talk about ways that we can sort of handle that, but... Okay, so like D4, D3, C4, D3, and then A3, D3. Yeah. Okay, so C4, D3, A3, D3, and then there's like, how does it go from there? Okay, so 2 of those. Okay. So 2 of those, and then, there it is. Okay, so F, and then A. Okay, F, and then A, and of course there's like a D3 between each of those, just like everything else. This is going to be F4 and A3, because the octaves are kind of like delineated at the C notes. So like if this is octave 4, then that is basically the, so this is the start of octave 4, this is the end of octave 3. Or I might be getting those wrong, but anyway. Okay, so this should be some sort of like multiple of 4, probably a multiple of 8. I'm hoping there are 16 notes here, so let's just verify that by sort of visually grouping them. Yeah, it looks like we've got 16 there, so that's good. And then we basically just need to decide what like voice to give this, essentially, what kind of like what synth we want to play this with. So usually super saw is a pretty classic choice. Let's see what that sounds like. It's a bit fast. So there are a few ways we could deal with this. We could say like slow 2. Okay, that's pretty decent. We could change this. We could make it like piano. Let's get the beat in there too. Okay, so that's good, I think. Now this part, the A3. Whoops. Sometimes... No, sorry, it's the F. This F4. Sometimes we actually want it to be A4. So I think we can use this command, or this syntax, so we can go from F4 to A4. And I believe what this will do is select F4 on one loop, and then on the next loop around, it'll choose the A4. Let's see if that's true. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm curious what would happen if we were to take all of this, group it into one of these, and then say times 2. So it's gonna make it really fast, but we'll just slow forward to offset that. Okay, cool, that's working the way I want it to. So now we need something very similar to this. Actually wait, this should play for 4 iterations, I think. And then we'll grab this, and we'll paste it in here, because we want to do something really similar, and I think we need to turn this down to like 16 now. Yeah, okay. Or turn it up. Anyway, point is, so for this stuff over here, a couple of things. We want to change, well essentially, yeah, we just want to transpose it a little down below, right? So instead of like, instead of that, we'll have more like a, okay, so that's what notes? We've got B flat, right? Because it's the key of D minor, so we've got B flat, A, and then F. So we'll start with that, I guess, okay. B flat, A, and then F. Wait, did I get that right? Yeah. Yeah, cool. So B flat, what? I guess B flat 3, right? Because we're going down from where we were before. And then A3, F3 as well. And instead of there being like the D3 in between these, now it's going to be B flat 2, because it's an octave lower. So B flat 2. And we're going to have a whole bunch of these. Basically in between everything, we're going to have one of those. Okay. And we'll do 2 of these, right? Yeah. And then we have the other thing. I think that's the one we're starting with. Yeah. Yeah, okay, cool. So that's B4. Sorry, that's D4 and then F4. D4 and then F4. Okay, so we'll use one of these, D4, F4, okay, and then another B flat 2. Does that make sense? Oh, right, and then we need, yeah, what's that note? That's F. Okay, so F3, and then another BF2. Okay, cool. And then times 4 for that. Does that make sense? Let's see. So that's 4, 4, 4, and 4. Yeah, cool. So that looks good. We'll close. Whoops, close that up. Okay, is this gonna work? Cool, sounds good, I think. Again, we can change like the instrument we're using or like the synth we're using. Choose one we like. And if we decide that like all of this is actually too low pitched or whatever, we could just say like plus 12. Let's go back to super saw. If we wanted something really like chiptune-y, we could go super chip. Actually sounds pretty cool. I sort of like that. I generally try to stray away from chiptune sounding stuff because I don't want my music to sound as primitive as it is, but yeah, this is pretty not bad. If we wanted to, like this is all patterns, right? In the same way that this stuff up here is patterns, so we can use like this kind of syntax here, like this times 4. We can use that same sort of stuff over here. So we could actually layer on 2 of these if we wanted to, or more than 2. It's your call. I don't actually like the way super saw sounds. Okay. Sounds good to me. We could give it other effects too, like change the decay, maybe 0.5 or something like that. No, that's decaying too much. We can get the whole ADSR, like attack, decay, sustained release. We can give it some cool kinds of sounds. There's this really powerful but kind of glitchy thing called room, which is basically going to give it like reverb, and then that goes along with size and also orbit. That tends to make it a bit louder. We can always turn it down though. Whoops. So that's a good example of what happens when you have an error. Let's hush that for a minute. Okay, so we've got a nice, kind of nice rhythm happening here. So usually at this stage, I like to try to find some good accompaniments, kind of like harmonize with it a little bit. So usually I break out the keyboard again at this point. If you're unfamiliar, if you don't have like a keyboard available, I recommend something like virtualpiano.net. It's quite useful. By the way, these all correspond to different channels, right? So like if we had this going in D3, and then we decide to play this in D3, it's going to replace the channel. But we can have, if they're on different channels, then we can have both of them going at the same time. Okay. Yeah, something like that would be cool, I think. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's do something like that. So that's kind of a tough thing in tidal cycles when you want notes that are like not the same length. It can make it pretty tricky, actually. So there are a few ways around it. One way is that we could just like put in the notes as we want them to be, and then change the sustain of those notes according to like a similar pattern. I don't know if I fully want to get into that because it's a bit complicated and it involves kind of like magic numbery sort of stuff, which I don't really like to get into. So instead what I'm going to do is a bit of a hack, I guess. We've got, but very slow essentially, right? So that's A, I'll say like A5, A6, yeah, A6, and then E6, F6, and G6. Yeah. Okay. So it's like this, except we basically want like a whole bunch of these ones, and then just a few of these ones, and then a whole bunch of these ones, and then just a few of these ones. So I'm going to use an interesting piece of syntax here. This is one I actually really like this one, but it can lead to some kind of strange issues. So hopefully that, well, we'll see what happens. I'm going to say x times 8. And basically the idea is that the x doesn't really stand for anything. It's just a placeholder that's going to get replaced by each of these notes over here. So this is something that's just going to play like kind of thing, but it's going to be replaced with these notes. So we'll say S super piano for now, okay? Okay, cool. Except we actually want it to be such that there are like, I don't know, maybe 12 of these, and then 4 of these, and then 12 of these, and then 4 of these or something? In fact, probably more than that, eh? Okay, so like maybe 20 of these, and another 20 of these? Let's try that. Wait, 24, does that make sense? I feel like it doesn't. It should be 32, right? So it should be like 28 of these and 28 of these. That would make more sense. Let's see if it matches. No, it's still too fast. Okay, so it should be like 60 of these, I think. That sounds super obvious when we're using the super piano. Actually, let me turn this down a bit. It's a bit loud. I think, anyway. Let's split the difference. Okay, cool. So maybe here we'll use like, maybe like super saw. Maybe even something. Oh God, no, my ears. Super comparator. Something a little softer. I don't know. Sounds a little weak. We can use the LFO to make it sound really funky, actually. But I don't think that's really what we're going for this one, so let's see what else we could use. I don't know. Maybe if we made it super saw, but then changed the voice, like let's say 0.1. Let's throw an LPF on there, low pass filter. So that we get less of the high end frequency, more the low end. Yeah. Okay, now we want this to be a little smoother, so we'll change like the attack, maybe, sort of stuff. Let's see. That's maybe a bit much. That's the opposite of what we want. Release, I think, is more what we want. 2.5, let's try that. Ideally, we want it to sound less like wop 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 kind of thing. Let's see what happens if the decay is really small. Sustain. That's closer to what we're looking for, but... Okay, that's not bad, actually. It's a little shrill, though, so maybe we can actually turn that down. Let's say, like, plus negative 12, which is kind of strange syntax. We can just say subtract, but anyway. Okay. As you can see, there's a lot of experimentation involved in this. But that's probably just me because I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. Okay. So that's sort of gently harmonizing. I feel like it should have some sort of other... That's decent, actually. Let's see. There's some commands that are specific to certain synths, so like pitch 3 is one of those that's just super chip, I think. And it can really alter the sound, so that can be a fun thing to play around with, especially like with scale. Make it go from like, I don't know, 0 to 20 or something like that over the course of like 16 measures according to a saw pattern, so just increasing basically. Might need that low pass filter back on there. Okay, that's kind of cool. I don't know. Might change it. We'll see. But we got that in there for now. Let's get another thing. So I want like I want kind of a baseline. Based on this, but I want to do something kind of cool, you know, like. So I think that's like 8 of those. Let's see. So what are those notes? That's D and then B flat. Okay, so D and then B flat. So let's start with D actually. So it's going to be, I don't know, D3, probably D2 would make more sense. And then we're going to use this 5/8 Euclidean pattern. So the way this works, apparently this is like, what was it? This is for like quantum physics or something like that, but they found that this was actually another application of it. It basically means if we have just like in general like X and then 5/8, then it's going to say, okay, play the X, and then I think this one looks like this. It essentially tries to space out the X's into like basically this number of them across this number of these in like an integer way. So it's not evenly spacing them, but kind of evenly spacing them. Hard to describe, but anyway, these are Euclidean patterns. They're a lot of fun to play around with. I think D3 is what we were calling this one, or that's the note we're using. And for S, we'll say super piano for now. Okay, so we kind of got an idea of what that's all about. I find Hammond is pretty good for bass. And it can get pretty interesting if we were to like throw a shape on there and then maybe lower the gain. Okay, so we want 8 of these, and then basically another 8, but with B flat 2. Of course, this is going to be way too fast. So we could do the thing we did above by doing like a slow 16, or we could just put the whole thing in square brackets and divide by 16. And I kind of prefer that solution because it isolates the slowdown to the pattern itself as opposed to putting it on the entire channel. That can have effects when we do stuff like this. So I'm going to use a stut. This is something I like to use a lot. You can get a huge effect out of these things. So this is going to take 3 arguments. The first one is how many stuts do we want to happen? The second one is what kind of an offset do we want? So I'm going to start with 0 for the offset. And then the third one is what effect do we want it to have? Whoops. Yeah, I just want that for now. So these can be used in various ways, by the way, and maybe we'll look at that pretty soon, but for now I want this to just be plus 12. So it's basically saying increase the notes by 12 semitones, in other words, 1 full octave, and it's basically just layering on another octave of sound. Okay, cool. Sometimes it can sound even more interesting. Whoa, okay, that's new. I don't know what I hit on the keyboard, but anyway. sometimes it can sound even more interesting if we space it out a bit. Okay, cool. And then we could like throw another one of those on top if we wanted. If you put a whole bunch of these on, it can get pretty intense. Sorry about that. We could even make this a pattern, for example, if we wanted to. Instead of just 12, maybe make it 7 and 12. Let's bring it back to 0. And then let's say, like, because now we have a chord, right? Instead of just this. Hold on a sec. Instead of just this, now it's that, right? Yeah, okay, so we could keep that if we wanted to. Like that whole chord, and then on top of that, we could say do another stud, 1 1/8 plus 12. So that's pretty cool, but it's a lot, you know, this could be processor intensive, so be aware of that. If it was just this one, by comparison, we can also get the same effect by just saying 0 on this one. If we put 2 on this one, it's probably going to sound like garbage. Not as bad as I was expecting, but it is a little intense, I'd say. Okay, so does this work with our other sounds here? Did we turn these all way down or something? Or I feel like I can't really hear that chip one very well. Maybe it's just because this one's so intensely loud. Let's turn it down. Now our bass kick isn't really keeping up. We probably want something a little more intense on this. Yeah, and then from here we can decide what else to do. We could probably work on the beat a little more. Add other stuff in. It's up to you. Yeah, so I think there was one of these that we liked, eh? I forget which one it was. Okay, we got a little bit of overload there. You might have heard it kind of brrr for a little bit. Towards 2, I think. I don't know, it's hard to say. Oh, I didn't even mention rests. A rest is basically like this. Okay, yeah, so let's say we've got something like this. So we'll say patterns, so we could layer these on. It's up to you how you want to proceed from here. We could throw in some, well, what other sounds do we have? I would really like maybe something that's like a, I don't know how well you could hear that, but anyway. I'd like something that's kind of like a tappity tap kind of sound, is what I'm trying to say. So, and I think there was one called R&B that I made a while back, or that I downloaded. I get most of these things from Free Sound. By the way, that should be S and that should be N down here. So let's see what we've got for this one. And let's just, yeah, it's not going to be that one. No. That could be part of it. Okay, so 3, 4, let's see what else. Maybe 6. No. No, okay. All right, so I think what we're actually going to do is we're going to flip this one around. We're going to say that the dominant pattern here is going to be N, yeah. And let's just turn this off for now, so it's a little less annoying. Right, actually wait, no, the dominant pattern, okay, and this is a thing with Tidal, that basically, like, all of these things are patterns, right? Like, for example, well, here's a good example. Let's say we have, what were we just looking at, R&B, times 4, and then for N, let's say we end up going with 5, except then we say we want to modify this. Let's say the speed, we want it to be like 2, for example. Okay, so that just changes like the pitch, whoops, not 0, 0.5 we could do. Change the pitch of this thing, right? So we can make this a pattern and say like we want a regular pitch and then a high pitch and then a regular pitch and then a low pitch. Okay, so these can all be patterns, but the main thing is that this is the pattern that kind of dominates it. This is the thing that's going to set the tone for everything else, and all of these are just going to try to match up with this pattern. Like this could be off, you know, like we could make this one just have like 3 things in here, and it's kind of, you know, it doesn't really match up as well, so we don't necessarily get the effect that we're expecting here. Anyway, just want to demonstrate that is a pretty annoying sound, so sorry about that. The reason I want to show that is because we can do something like this, where we say like, yeah, but make it like 3, then 4, then 3, then 6, or something like that, right? We don't need these, but I like them. Okay, and make it faster. Okay, let's try this. We can play around with it, see what we enjoy, see what we don't, but the main thing is how does it fit in with the rest of the beat, you know? I'd say it's pretty decent. Sometimes I like to throw in a bit of randomness on some of these beats, and I find that tends to have a good effect, but it can be pretty complicated to actually do. For this one, let's see, or should it be this one? Okay, here's the thing we can do. Yeah, we could take this, and we could do something like this. Check it out. I think this will work, but I'm not totally sure. It might not give the effect I'm expecting. Okay, that's kind of what I was expecting. But now what we want to do is use our stut command, like we've done in the past. let's say what do we want the offset to be? 1/8, let's say. I usually use like fractions with a base of 2, or sorry, fractions with a denominator that's a power of 2. Yeah. Okay, and then the effect that we want, so previously we were saying like plus 12. That's not even going to make sense in here though, because we're not inside the n like we were over here. So since we're not inside the n, we're going to have to use something else. So we could say that we want the speed to be 2 on these like echoes. Okay, not bad. We could even say that we want it to be like some multiple of what the speed already is, but that means we would need like a baseline to follow, right? So we could say that we want to multiply the speed by 2. No difference yet, but if we were to add on another level, not bad, not bad. Let's say we want to add 1 to the speed instead, so it's a little less, yeah, not bad, okay. Then we could also accompany that with some other stuff, like we could say we want a high pass filter that's normally 0, and then like high pass resonance that's like 0.25, and we can throw on additional effects. So we can say, yeah, increase the speed, but also increase the high pass filter by 500 and see what happens then. That's LPF, it should be HPF. Okay, so that sounds a little funkier than what it was before, I'd say. I think that's pretty decent. Does it fit in with the rest of this stuff? I actually no longer like the sound of this one. Maybe 2 and 3. It's the 3 I don't like. Maybe it's the 2 I don't like. You can change the legato, make it shorter. Yeah, that sounds a little weird. I don't know what would be better for this one. Oh. Actually, I do. Let's turn on the shape. Cool. It's a little more subtle that way. Maybe we can just make it slightly louder. Another thing we could do is, there's a way to do this where we say like, I want this one to just like rarely but sometimes also play the sample. I don't know if that worked actually. Oh, kinda, but it's not what I wanted. I'll just keep it like that for now. Hey! Welcome to the JavaScript the game stream. That was fun. That was a much longer intro.